Hey there, listeners. Welcome to the Leadership is Changing podcast. I'm your host, Denis, and I'm glad you're here with me today on this Ask Denis episode. And you know what? Tony Robbins talks about setting goals as really the first step in turning the invisible to visible. And so today, I want to talk a little bit more, in addition to other episodes that I've done recently about goal setting and so forth. So we want to talk about that today. So let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas.
Hey there, listeners. Well, welcome to the Ask Denis episode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, experiences, and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. Well, once again, Happy New Year to you, and hope the year already is going well for you. And as I said in my introduction, that quote by Tony Robbins saying that setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible to visible. In other words, how do we bring things to life? And so today's episode is really going to be talking about you setting goals. So you've set your goals now, or if you set your goals, now what? And so let's talk about that, because you see, it's really interesting here that I've been getting messages from people in relation to episode 536 and some other episodes as well. And in particular of late, it's coming in because people are looking at their new goals for the year. It's a brand new year. And they're talking to me about how they're loving the episode. First of all, hey, thank you for sending me the messages. Really appreciate it. And I'm really glad to see what you're getting out of the episodes. Because when people come to me and say, great episode, and this is all really good and really enjoyed it, I always go back with the question. And the question is, that's great to see or great to hear. Thank you so much. What is it that you're actually getting out of the episode? Or what did you actually take away from the episode? And then people are coming back to me, and it's really great to hear what they're actually getting out of it. The big thing here is, if you haven't already heard episode 536, which is setting your year up for massive success, I'm going to highly recommend that you go and listen to that episode as well. So here's a question for you. How's your New Year resolutions going? Are they really working for you? Or have you already forgotten about it? Because you see, we're now coming to the end of week 2 of the brand new year. For a lot of people, they've given up on their New Year resolutions. For others, it's not working for them. So if not, why not? It's actually a very interesting question. And so in episode 536, I talk about how you should set goals. And I actually mention one thing around creating goals that are actually quite interesting, inspiring, and motivating, not boring goals. And what do I mean by that? I talk about either a movie title or a book title, one that's going to capture you, one that you feel is part of you and it's related to you and it's emotionally attached to you. And the thing here is that when you think about a book title, you look at a book and you see it, well, what actually happens next? So you've set the goal. That's one thing. And I've talked to you about planning and monitoring and things like that. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper in some of these areas as well. So the next big thing for you to do is to actually do some planning. Now, the thing here is, I don't want you to get into massive detail. It's more about you at a very high level. Okay, here we go. If you're in your helicopter and you're looking down on a racetrack, the racetrack has different areas or milestones that you need to be thinking about. In a book, when you look at the book, you go to the table of contents, there is 10, 12, 15 chapters. They all have their own subtitles, right? That's what I'm talking about, a milestone. So if you're in your helicopter and you're looking at the racetrack, there's the start line, there's a big bend, there's going up hills, there's a tight turn, there's the pit stop, and then there's the finish line. There are big milestones or big areas or big things to think about when you're actually on the racetrack. When you're reading a book, you got the titles, right? You got all the chapter headings. They're the big areas that you're going to go into. It's almost like a filing cabinet. So you have a filing cabinet and it's got 3 drawers. Inside the drawers, they've got different tabs and so forth. Well, they all start to become sort of like the milestones of what you're looking at doing. Now, they really are like the big chunky pieces. And the thing here is, I'm just going to give you some examples of some things you might want to think about as you set one of your goals. The thing here would be for you to actually understand where you are today in relation to that goal. The next thing is, what does the end picture look like? In other words, once you've achieved that goal, what does it look like then? So that's the sort of end state, the end picture. The difference between where you are now and where you want to be in the future with that goal, there's going to be some differences. There's going to be some gaps. There's going to be some, this is where I am, this is where I need to go to. But the question would be, okay, what action plans do you need to put in place for you to go from where you are now to where you want to go to? Okay. The other thing I think you need to think about is, how do you monitor the progress, your progress? How's it going? How's the goal going? And how you're doing that on a regular basis. There's another bonus point or bonus area that I want to give you as well, because it's one that people don't think about or talk about often. And that is celebrating any milestone achieved or any progress within the goal. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't need to celebrate every 5 minutes, but celebrating is really important. And if you can do that, then build that into the plan as well. Now, when you think about it, so I've gone and set my goals. And one of the things that I wanted to do, once I've achieved it by that date or around that date that I've actually set myself, I've actually put beside it what I'm going to do to celebrate. What is going to be the thing that I need to do to help me to say, well done, congrats. Psychologically, this is very important for you to do and for you to think about as well. The other thing I'm going to say to you is that make sure that you're reflecting on your goals and your progress on a regular basis. Now, the monitoring is one, but reflecting / debriefing with yourself in relation to that goal and the progress and the milestones is vital. Now, this is all great that I've shared with you. This is all sounding very good. But what's really, really important for you is to take action. You can have the best sounding goals, the most good looking goals. They look good, they smell good, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter unless you do something with it. For some of you, you're going to poke it with a stick, as I call it, just to see how it goes. And you're going to use this word hope. I hope it's going to work out. Leaders, you don't use the word hope. You should not be hoping. You're giving other people hope based on your leadership and what you're doing. But you need to work it out. You need to understand what's going to go on. And so you need to keep not only making sure that it's going to work out, but you need to make sure that you're working on it on a regular basis as well. What do I mean by this? You're going to have to keep working, reviewing, adjusting, thinking about things. So if a yacht racer takes off and a yacht's going away and it's got its sails up, that's all great. But they will need to tack or they will need to change sides of the yacht and the way it's going and the direction based on the wind, based on what the conditions, the waves and everything. So you need to also be mindful of that. When you're driving a car, a truck and so forth, or a plane, they always talk about driving to the conditions. This is the same thing with your goals. Think about how you are going to work towards those goals and the conditions that are in front of you right now. Keep reviewing, keep looking at things, and keep adjusting as you do. So really what I want to say here is that that's some things for you to think about as well. But in episode 536, I talked about Christmas and New Year, and that was a great time for me to do my goal setting and a great time for you to do it as well. If you haven't already done that, no problem. Now is a great time for you to think about your goals and setting them. If you have already got your goals in place, now's a fantastic time for you to do some planning. For people around the world, people are already back into work. Others are coming back to work depending on where they are around the world. Because for some people in the Southern Hemisphere, it is summer break and they're going to come back in the next week or two. But here are a few other things I think you might want to start thinking about this time of year as well. The very first thing would be for you to revisit your why, your big picture, the reason, your purpose. Why are you doing this? Or why are you doing these goals? Or whatever you're doing in life? It is a great time for you to revisit that. The next thing would be for you to review your goals that you have set already. So if you set them during Christmas and New Year, go back and review already, because 2 weeks have gone by, and it's always quite good just to review, just to make sure, tweak it, and fine-tune it, and whatever you need to do. As I said, if you haven't set the goals, now's a great time for you to go ahead and do it. Are those goals actually big enough? In other words, if you already know how to do it, as I've said in those other episodes, that's not a goal. That's just a task. So the big thing here for you would be for you to make sure that they're big enough. They're actually daunting. They're actually a little bit scary. You don't know how to do them. That's fine. And I wouldn't limit your thinking either, because for some of you, you're going to start reasoning with yourself, or some of you may even start to think about what others might be thinking. Stay focused on what you need to do and where you need to go. Bring that plan together, that action plan, and start to bring it to life. Another thing you might want to think about is what resources and tools you might need to help you to be successful going forward. Now, here's a trap. Caution. Watch out that you're not spending a lot of your time looking at resources and tools. Do some quick research, review it, and make a decision quickly on it. And then just go for it. Keep it simple. There's nothing wrong with using a spreadsheet to track your goals. Simple. Or pen and paper to track your goals and keep working on it. You don't need to get fancy. It's all good. The other thing would be, I would actually suggest for you to get together with your mentor if you've got one, or your coach if you've got one. If you don't have one, I'm going to highly recommend that you start thinking about who would you like to work with to help you get to where you need to. Now, if you are going to meet your mentor or coach, be mindful of their time. So in other words, prepare for the meeting beforehand. Walk into that meeting prepared, knowing where you're going and what you're wanting to do, while at the same time being flexible enough to know that feedback or questioning or challenging from your mentor and your coach may help you actually start to think about things a little bit differently. Have your goals, your plans, and your questions ready for that meeting as well. And finally, what I want to say to you is this, is that there's a lot of noise out there. There's a huge amount of noise, whether it's coming from media, people around you, things going on at work, whatever. Block it out. Stay focused on what you need to do. Because I always say to my leaders that I work, be disciplined, be focused, and be consistent in what you do. The key word of going from average to excellence is consistency, and that is huge. In other words, go from autopilot mode to being a deliberate leader mode, and go out there and do that on a daily basis. Be a deliberate leader every single day. And if you can pull that all together, then it's going to be an awesome year for you. If there's anything I can do to help you, if there's anything I can do to help your organization, if you or your leadership within your organization needs a shift, needs a wake-up call, needs to be moved forward to enable you to lead change and lead the organization forward, then feel free to reach out to me. If you're wanting some one-on-one coaching, if you're wanting me to sit down with you and do a free strategy session for 30 minutes just to talk about where you're wanting to go, let's do that. And let's have a chat so we can take things forward. Well, it's really up to you now. You've got this from episode 536, and you've also got from this episode, and there's other episodes that I have done as well. It's up to you now. You go out there, you decide what you need to do. One resource you do need is to keep listening to this podcast so then you can keep growing and being in the right leadership mindset. Hey listeners, that's it for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.